Blessings, peace and blessings and grand rising. I am at the park today, out in nature, in this beautiful woodland here on native Timucua and Apalachee land. And it is such a beautiful day. It is so peaceful. I'm enjoying the sounds of the forest. And by the way, if you don't know who I am, my name is Alexis Akuya, and I am an artist researcher, a writer and herbalist. I am a farmer, and I'm the founder of Genie Botanica, an ancestral craft studio that is based here in Florida and bridges the worlds of art and ecology to preserve Black Indigenous culture. And today I have a message for you all. Some things I've been reflecting on that have been on my mind, my heart, and my spirit. I've been thinking about my existence as a being of earth here on this planet, and the purpose of my life and the purpose of all of our lives. And as I look around me, I feel so grateful to be out here with all of this greenery, to be born and raised here in a tropical environment where abundance is innate to this land. And I think it's interesting that in this current time, there's a lot of modernization happening where there's a push toward urbanization and existing more in urban environments, big cities, and that being considered a sign of progress and success. And I've been reflecting on the spirit of the land that is omnipresent and always speaking regardless of whether or not we're paying attention. And what the spirit of the land is telling me is that we need to have a deeper understanding of where exactly we are. So this question came up yesterday in my reflection. Where am I? Where am I? Where am I located? A lot of us don't really know where we are. We don't think about where exactly we are. We think about where we are in terms of the names of the towns and the streets that we navigate and inhabit. And we often think about where we are in an urban sense. Look at this palm tree. So beautiful. Palm trees are absolutely incredible. They are my favorite type of tree. I also really love pines. There's a lot of pines out here. And the trees are our family. We are the children of the trees. Trees are ancient beings who have been here for a very long time, and they have so much wisdom to teach us about ourselves on an existential level. And I find so much wisdom and peace in the presence of the trees and their magic. They are truly magical. Trees provide us food. They provide us medicine. Trees have their own personalities and their own voices. And they have memories and feelings. They feel in the same way that humans feel. And they also hold trauma in the same way that we hold trauma. So it's really important to be considerate of all of those things when we are in the presence of the trees and navigating them, because they do sense us and they're looking out for us. And because they're looking out for us, that means that we have to play our role as a keystone species on Earth to protect the trees. And this is essential to an indigenous way of life. And urbanization is really a myth, because there's a global awakening happening of people becoming more aware of their divine essence as natural beings, which means there's a return of the indigenous lifestyle and the indigenous worldview, the indigenous way of perceiving ourselves in relation to the world around us. And so we have to be present with nature. Instead of viewing nature as something that is simply extra on the margins of urban civilization for us to spend occasional time in, we have to make an effort to view nature as something that is immersive. We are constantly immersed in the forest. The urban world is built within the forest. So, in that sense, the trees are truly authoritative, sovereign beings who are here to guide us. And when I was thinking about this question of where am I was looking around me, and I was thinking about how Mother Earth is alive. And this is something that many of us are aware of. We know that this planet is living, that it has sentience. But what we're being called to do right now in this moment in time is to fully awaken to the fact that we are basically like grains of sand on the beach, and we are traversing this great mother creature. Like how many people say, Earth is a rock floating in space. That's very true. And if you've ever seen the movie Horton Hears a Who, then you'll know exactly what I'm talking about. Because I think that's a really good example of the indigenous way of perceiving ourselves. It's similar to the storyline in Horton Hears a Who, where there's a small plant and there's an entire world that's living on that plant. And the people living there are microscopic. They're extremely small. And you can't really see them. You don't know what's going on in their lives until you look up close. So, in the natural world, we have what we call the ecosystem. And the ecosystem is composed of a concert of creatures who are all coexisting at once and playing their divine role in nature. And creatures exist on many different levels and dimensions. There are creatures experiencing realities that we have no idea about. Similar to the fact that there are creatures who are not aware of our reality as humans. We live a completely different reality. And what has happened throughout history and colonization over the past few hundred years is that we've been conditioned to only care about our human existence, which has made us very closed-minded, and it has removed our access to ancient wisdom that has existed for thousands of years. It has limited our consciousness so that we are only focused on ourselves and our daily problems and issues. And it has also inflated our ego to the point where our hearts are disconnected from each other. We have difficulty feeling empathy toward each other, especially our own people. And it's very easy for people to be disconnected, to get into arguments and never speak to each other again. For families to break up. People don't even really speak to their own families a lot of the time, unless you make a conscious effort to, host gatherings and go and see your family and do fun things with them and spend quality time. There is a lot of trauma happening in this world, and it has a lot to do with exactly what I'm talking about. Our severance from the indigenous spirit of the land that is our true source of wisdom and our foundation. And what I've noticed in my own experience is that when I become more aware of the fact that I am like a tiny grain of sand on a beach in comparison to the immensity of Mother Earth, it brings up a lot of questions, and it allows me to feel more connected to everything around me. And this could be both a blessing and a curse. This could be both a blessing and a curse. It could be a blessing in the way that it gives us more sovereignty over our own energy field. Everyone has an aura radiating around them, and our aura is what keeps us strong. It allows us to maintain our boundaries. It determines our spiritual health, our vitality, our inner strength, our clarity of focus. And so being enlightened to this perception is very strengthening for the aura. At the same time, it can be a curse because if you're living in a toxic environment, if you're surrounded by people who are unhealthy and unhealed, then it can make you more susceptible to all of those things. So you have to make more of an effort to really protect your energy so that you can be grounded in yourself. Because when we're not grounded in ourselves, then that destabilizes us. And if we're integrating this worldview back into our lives, then that means we have to take more authority over our own energy, over our own actions, because we are each a part of the earth. And colonization has caused us to separate ourselves from the planet so that we don't view ourselves as integral to the ecosystem the same way that there are all these different creatures. There are trees, all the plants, there are squirrels, there are bees and butterflies. Here in Tallahassee, on native Appalachian land, there are deer, there's wild rabbits, there's foxes, there's hawks, there's even seagulls, which is really interesting because we're not close to a beach, but you'll notice that there are many seagulls. There are many seagulls here, which is really interesting because we're not close to a beach. But when I was doing research into the geology of this land, I found out that there used to be an ocean here, and there's an ancient coastline that runs through this city. So that could possibly explain why there are so many seagulls. And I'm really curious about the story of the seagulls, how they got here and why they're still here if there's no water, because they're typically associated with the ocean. So, as I was saying, we don't perceive ourselves in the same way that we perceive the bees and the butterflies, the squirrels, the rabbits, the deer, the foxes, the hawks. But we really need to, because if we don't, then Mother Earth could have her own plans for what she would like to do with herself, and depending on what she decides for herself, that could leave us as humans in a vulnerable position. There are lots of what they say natural disasters happening around the planet, and the waters are polluted, the soil is polluted, the air is polluted. And especially here in the US, we live in a way that allows us to be very ignorant of what is happening on the earth. The ways that the resources of the earth are being extracted and depleted, including the water, which is extremely important because we need water to live. And so if we don't have clean water, then what are we going to do? That's a really important question to consider. We have to have clean water. We have to have control over our resources. We have to know what's happening to the resources that we use on a daily basis. And all of these questions come up when you start spending more time with the trees and really listening to them. And another thing that has come up in my reflections that I would like to share is that outside is a room. So I'm really fascinated by ants, and ants carry so much knowledge. They're very hardworking. That's one of the main things they're known for. They are avid workers. They're very militant in their work. And if you've ever observed ants, then you know what I mean. And I was journaling about ants a while ago, and the words rooms, fields, and palaces came up because I was observing them creating their ant beds, which are very similar to palaces. They're like these grand royal plazas and temples that they make for themselves and their communities. And I was thinking about this concept of rooms. And what I realized is that the outdoors is like a room. Think about it. If you are viewing yourself as an integral element of the ecosystem, you are a being of nature, birthed by planet Earth, who is our mother. And if you're living the way Indigenous people lived, immersed in the natural world, with the acknowledgement that everything we have comes from the earth, and you have to literally build from the ground up everything you have, your home, your community. You have to utilize the resources of your environment to figure out how to survive and support yourself. Well, then that makes indoors seem very different. And that's one thing about urbanization. Everybody is always indoors. Even when people go outside, you're not really outside. You're outside, but you're viewing outside as something that's completely separate as inside. The Indigenous worldview sees outside like a room. You live outside, and you build from outside to create the inside of your home. So you develop a level of familiarity with your environment to the point where it becomes like a room. The grass is like a carpet. So that's really interesting. And all of this green, you know what I learned about the color green? The color green is a gift from Venus, planet Venus, in outer space, gave us the color green. So the energy that Venus radiates onto the earth creates the green color of all the leaves and the plants. Isn't that absolutely incredible? And Venus is the planet of beauty, love, harmony, balance, joy, the finer things in life, things that are of high quality, those are all governed by Venus. So Venus is very connected to our heart space. So it's important that we have a consciousness of the energy that Venus gives us, because her spirit manifests in our hobbies, our passions, our favorite foods, our favorite colors, the things that we're naturally drawn to that bring us joy, that bring us peace. Those are gifts from Venus. And that's another reason why nature is so healing, because when we're immersed in all this greenery, it is so therapeutic for our spirit, and it connects us to our heart space. And trees radiate that higher frequency of love, and we can alchemize our pain in the trees, and they will help us heal. And that's my message for you today. I hope that you go to the park, go on a hike, go to the beach, just go outside and be outside like it's a room, and listen to the sounds of the forest and how it's speaking to you, and the messages of all the creatures in nature, because all the creatures in nature, they always have a message for us, and Mother Earth is always speaking to us. So be blessed, enjoy your day, enjoy your week, your month, your year, and I will see you soon. Peace. Yeah.